Welcome to Prime Latino Media. I'm Theo Louis, and I consider it a privilege to have here across from me, across the Atlantic Ocean in Madrid, Horacio Alcalá, a director, producer of documentaries and feature films and shorts that he does for the European Union, the Commission for the European Union. But I always like to start at the beginning, and what's a nice Mexican boy, for lack of a better term, you're really a man, um, doing in Europe, where you started off in Germany studying film, and then you're now living in Madrid. What was that journey about? And who are you today?
Well, I was looking for a job. I ended up in a circus. I found a job at Cirque du Soleil. I needed money to pay for my film school, and so I ended up working 7 years for them instead of 6 months.
And I just want to clear up, when you say you worked for the Cirque du Soleil, I didn't see you on a trapeze, did I?
No, I haven't been to a trapeze. I'm not an artist. Actually, I was working in production in the touring shows division. So I was helping the tour to set in different cities. So I traveled across Europe for 7 years with them, every capital in Europe. And I ended up in Madrid because I fell in love with the city.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, no offense to anybody else in Spain, and I've only covered half of Spain, so I'm not an expert in the country, but I love Madrid. Oh my God, it's truly, it's the sister city of New York, being a 24-hour city. Actually, I think Madrid is more of a 24-hour city than New York City.
Maybe. I don't live the 24 hours in the street, but I know people who does.
So what's interesting is, how did your experience for several years with Cirque du Soleil impact the creation of your first documentary, Grazing the Sky, which was about following a group of international acrobats from Palestine to Australia, from Montreal
to the Netherlands.
To the Netherlands, who are all competing to get into this internationally acclaimed Italian school of circus, and they're all competing, and you follow them all. So I found it homoerotic. I found it a celebration of dance and acrobatics, and a love letter to the planet, because you covered so many different regions. So how did your Cirque du Soleil background shape the creation of your first documentary?
Well, when I finished the film school, I had to show that I have talent, and I discovered that there was no documentary talking about the contemporary acrobats, not about the classic circus families, because that's something different. So I found there was nothing, and I decided that had to be my first big project. So I did it. It took me 5 years of following the acrobats around the world, waiting for them to develop their career until we had something that we can show. And it was very successful. We were in over 90 film festivals over the world. It has shown in every TV in Europe, and it has opened the doors to my new projects.
And usually we find that a first film, whether successful or not, and your first film was richly successful because it's truly a work of art. It is just a jewel for the eyes, that oftentimes our first film paves the way for future films to come, for better and for worse. No matter what you experience the first time around, it's sort of like, what was the biggest lesson you learned from your first film, that as you developed your next one, you were committed that I'm not going that route again?
Well, I did a lot of mistakes. I did every single mistake you can imagine, and I learned from every single thing. But you know what? I learned from circus acrobats, even if they fell 10 times a day, they get up, they dust, they clean the dust from the knees, off the knees, and they go. And that's what I did, despite all the mistakes, I just cleaned off the dust on my knees and went on. And so after that film, I did another documentary about a boxer in Spain.
Oh, another one, another goodie. Really, I'm
Unbelievable.
so glad you're raising that because that was also, and that I love these universal themes of pain that we all share in common. That here was this phenomenal boxer who had an accident, a tragic accident on the boxing ring, and he's now disabled.
After being world champion 13 times on a row. And the best thing is now he's teaching from his wheelchair.
And the name of that documentary?
The name of the documentary is My Kingdom Come. In Spanish is A Nosotros Tu Reino, and it's about the great boxer Simón González.
So you've now given birth to those two babies, and now you make a huge transitional jump from documentary filmmaking to narrative filmmaking with your latest project completed this year, Finlandia, that's set in Spain, but mostly 95% in Oaxaca, in Mexico, where you turn the camera on this wonderful group of indigenous Mexicans who are practicing rituals from over 1,000 years. Can you tell us about Finlandia and the mushes and what mushes means and why you were drawn to this subject?
Mujeres is an old word, an old Spanish word, comes from Galician, which means woman, mujer, mujer. And a mujer is the strength of a man with the spirit of a woman, and is the third gender. It's very difficult to explain. Let's say they are not transgender. They have their own language, is Zapoteco, and they have 3 articles. While we have 2 in Spanish, they have 3 articles. So there is a space to be a mushi even in their language. It's a very well accepted situation in that region, and it comes from the ancient Zapotecas, thousands of years of history. So
And
now they do design, they do clothes design and jewelry, and it's very specific, beautiful. It takes them sometimes 8 months to do one garment, but it's amazing garments.
and these are men wearing dresses, but with embroidery around their heads. Not only is it headgear, but it also complements and circulates around their head. It's just hand embroidered works that are just a work of art.
And they look like goddesses.
And they are.
And they are. That was my mission on the film, to show them like special human beings. But, you know, now we are going through difficult times, not only for health things, but also for political situations. And it is time to show these kind of stories, you know, to fight against these political situations we're going through, especially for you in the United States.
And here I've been a fan of yours for 6 years. So of course, it's like you're part of the family. And of course, you love your family members, or at least for the most part, you love your family members and everything they do. But I'm so glad when I learned that this film, Finlandia, got into the Guadalajara, the Festival Internacional de Cine de Guadalajara, which is really the primordial Latin American film festival. And not only are you a proud Mexican, and that the film also mostly takes place in Mexico, but that this is where it premieres. So how do you feel, you know, that this, of all the places, that this is where it's starting?
I'm very happy to go back home with such a film. You know, first of all, I'm very proud to go home, because that festival is also my home. I worked in that festival like 20 years ago. I had films in competition before, and now I go again after many years. So we are having the world premiere in Guadalajara on the 4th of October, and we are hoping for the best, because we want all the festivals to see the film, all the programmers, maybe platforms, maybe TV. And most of all, I want my people to see my film.
So you're a great believer that film festivals can also be a domino effect for other opportunities.
Yes.
And you're also saying that Guadalajara is also a film market.
It's also a film market, so we will try to have some meetings to show the film privately, and if possible, to do some special screenings for the media.
So let's also talk reality check that, we love to make films, but how was it different raising funds for Finlandia than your first film, which was a documentary? Was it better, easier, or are you now just more seasoned at fundraising?
You know what? It was easier to get fundings for the first documentary about circus acrobats because it was, let's say, an open issue, But for Finlandia, it was very, very difficult to get fundings. We didn't get any fundings.
Really,
And
because I would have also assumed, because you live in Spain, that you could have tapped into European funding, and being Mexican and the film set in Mexico, that you could also get funding from Mexico and Latin America. Am I being too idealistic?
No, it is too idealistic. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. We had to finance it on our own, getting debts in the bank and so on. The thing is, we don't know if the issue was too sensitive for the institutions. We will never know.
That's
But
amazing.
The film is there.
That is
No
the
matter how.
21st century, and we're still fighting these stigma and bias, and that we still have to fear when we go into meetings. Do I talk about this? Do I hype something else? Because at the end of the day, also, your film doesn't only deal with men who appear by Western standards as cross-dressers. And there was also the subject of prostitution in it, but that your film is a beautiful homage to an indigenous tribe that's been there way before Christopher Columbus, that has a way of life, but also an artistry that they practice and a way of life, that who are we to pass judgment on that and apply our Western values when someone just wants to tell an anthropological story? I mean, are you an anthropologist behind your lens?
No, not at all. Not at all. I had to learn a lot before going there, and I had to do my own research to be able to understand the situation, but also for me to understand how to portray them. I have to say that the government in Oaxaca and the institutions and the locals, they were very, very helpful with the film. I think that was the only institution that really helped. They opened the doors for everything. They gave us locations for free, and people was just coming to the filming to see, hey, do you need an extra? I can do an extra for you. It was amazing.
Now, refresh my memory. Are most of the characters in the film non-actors?
There is a mix. It's very mixed, and you wouldn't know who is who.
That's wonderful. I mean, I've seen great films with non-actors in it that were stellar. Is that something you recommend to filmmakers? Work with what you have at hand, or make sure at least you have some professionals on set?
You know what? It depends on the story. It's all on the story. I wouldn't recommend something specific. What your story asks for, go for it.
Talk to me, as long as we're now in the area of recommendation, and in English we have the term, give me your 2 cents. Well, I think you're fantastic. I'm elevating you to 10 cents. Give me your 10 cents recommendation to storytellers about the importance of forming a team and a group of not only fans, but people who support you. The importance of getting a project done because you can't do it alone.
The first is get people involved who really want to do it. Not people who wants to do it for the money, but people who do it from the heart. Get people involved who wants to see the final product, not only the process, because you can't do a film just because of the process. It has to have an end. Get people involved who are really passionate about the story and who really trust you, and people you trust in. And most of all, people who wants to work 24 hours.
Without, and that's the beauty of an independent project.
Yes.
And you're a crown king in working with and in independent filmmaking and storytelling. So in sharing your journey, what advice do you have for when you finish your project and give birth to it, on how do you secure an agent and distribution to get your project out there?
First, you are going to get a lot of no's. You will get 20 no's to get two maybes and maybe one yes. But you know what? The more no's you get, the closer you get to the maybe. And from there, you go to the yes. So don't get desperate. Just go, 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 go until you get it. And most of all, you have to remember making film is not something you do in 1 or 2 days. So don't expect results in a month or in 2 months. The results are going to come, in my case, are coming 10 years later.
What's more important, forming a financial team or a production team?
No, you have to have a mix here. And you have to start at the same time with both teams. It's very important to get the financing. If you don't get the financing, you're going to do the film anyways without money, but try to have the financing team on board at the same time. That's it. This is something I learned.
So piggybacking on the subject of financing, you've been very clear that a lot of your last film, Finlandia, which is Spanish for Finland, set in Mexico, but you have to watch the film to find out what this is about exactly. Is what do you do, since you're saying that a lot of this was self-funded? What do you do to pay your way in life? What do you do for bread and butter? How do you finance your films? What do you do?
Well, I work in different films for cross-border cooperation projects for the European Commission in general.
So, and it's cross-border productions.
No, cross-border cooperation.
Gotcha.
Means there is cooperations between countries within the EU and countries out of the EU that have a border. So I work as a specialist in these projects doing or filming the results of this cooperation. And I've been doing this for 15 years. Besides that, I also do some advertisement videos, small videos to pay my bills.
And to finance your projects.
And to finance my projects, yes.
So are you a director? Are you a producer? We like to think of you as a screenwriter, but it seems you don't consider yourself that. What are you? I mean, because you have a wonderful eye. When you send me photographs as you're developing a film, I mean, if I had $1 million, I would be investing in your films. So what are you at the end of the day?
I'm a director. And because at the beginning, nobody wanted to produce my things, I have to produce it myself. And this is still the way it is. If I want to do something, I have to produce it. I hope this is going to change at some point. No, but so I'm producer by obligation if I want to do my films. I'm not a writer. I made up the stories, but then I collaborate with people who are really experts on this and help me to develop it. In the end, you cannot do everything. You really have to accept what you can do and what you cannot do. Sometimes I do DP, but this is because I need to get in very close contact with the DOP, and I need to learn his language. So I need to know what we're doing together. So we have a very close collaboration.
And now you're working on a wonderful production for the National Dance Company of Spain on the quintessential ballet Giselle that is directed by Joaquin de la Luz, who is from Spain, has made full circle coming back home, but we know him in New York City as having been the artistic director of the New York City Ballet. So you're in Spain now filming this. Tell me about that, because I've seen the photographs and it's phenomenal. And I mean, and they're practically nude.
Yes, because it's an homage also to beauty, no? So what I did is I got this amazing ballet and I brought it to the National Library and I mixed the literature
To the National Library of Spain.
Of Spain, in Madrid. So the documentary is about the setup of the show Giselle, which is a medieval ballet. And in that documentary, I also tell the story of Giselle while I'm going through the history of the National Dance Company and showing other productions they have.
And tell me about the next project you're developing, which you are now, I think you've been bitten by the narrative bug and you're developing another narrative.
Exactly, because I'm not a documentarist. I'm not a director of documentary per se. I got the chance to do it, so I did it, but not really my aim is to do fiction. We are now developing what is called Over the Waves, and it's the story of a filmmaker and a producer. They don't have any money, and they get a project that they want to do because they are in love with an actress. So they promise a lot of things to the actress that are not true. But the actress asked them to continue the filming in Mexico, although they don't have any money. And that's where this amazing adventure starts, in a small island where the water is stocked because the people there has never seen the sea. And that's why it's called Over the Waves.
I love it. So last but not least, a proud Mexican living in Madrid. What do you miss most about Mexico?
Oh, I miss my family, of course.
You wouldn't be Latino if you
I wouldn't
did.
be Latino if I don't miss the family, but I miss the food. Most of the time, I wake up in the morning at 5 o'clock in the morning thinking about menudo and tacos and ceviche and all this, because for me is yes. I can't avoid it.
No, of course not. So I send you virtual mole from my house to your house. Thank you so much for gracing our Prime Latino Media with the great work you do. Spanish language, you also mix indigenous languages with it. I mean, you're a remarkable filmmaker with un gran ojo, as we say, with a great eye. And we will be looking at your projects for many more years to come. Good luck in the festival in Guadalajara and getting that distributed. I want to see that on US television. So you got to get that agent and distribution company working because we want to see it here in the United States. Un millón de gracias, Horacio Alcalá, here in Prime Latino Media. Theo Louis thanks you from the bottom of his heart. Thank you.
Bye.